Hello and welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Joy Evans.
I'm Chris Yi.
Today we have Nucleum for you. This is a Luciani and Turksy design.
That's so right.
Combination. I've heard a lot of people say barrage meets brass.
Yes. How you doing?
That is the little shorthand. We'll talk about if we feel like it lives up to that title here.
The old Airbnb.
I like the theming on this one. When Elsa von Flugelfeld presented her invention to King Frederick Augustus Dose of Saxony, people thought it was trickery. Nuclear power.
It's never going to work.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I'll show you how it plays.
In Nucleum, players are trying to get the most points, but they're doing that by nuclearizing Germany. You're building buildings, you're connecting routes, you're trying to connect two power plants, which will eventually get nuclearized throughout the game. You're also trying to connect to your Nucleum mines or these coal spots over here, and that's how you're going to be powering your buildings. When you power them, you flip them over, you get a lot of cool benefits. There's some engine building, there's some endgame point stars that help you reach those goals, as well as endgame points. Because this is just an overview, and honestly this board is so giant that you can't even see the player board, I'm going to talk about this sideboard for a minute and then we're basically not going to touch it again. So over here is where you eventually spend your stars. You're going to be placing only one per color, and these are going to correlate to endgame scoring multipliers. So as you can see, the higher up you go, you get a higher multiplier, but then it also just depends on what the objectives are for those regions. This is also where you get your routes, which are your action tiles, your contracts. These are the end game trigger flags, because at the end of 2 or 3 of these being placed out, that's when you trigger the end game. And then finally, these are the stars that you're going to be initially putting on the star track. That's another end game trigger. You have more of those you can put out later. Let's talk about basic turn structure first. There are 3 possibilities that you can do on a turn. You have these action sticks down here, and you're going to collect more throughout the game, but you can choose to either use them up here for their action. You can take both the top and the bottom action in any order, or you can choose to place them on the board with these little guys. And then finally, if you cannot or do not want to do either one of those, you can take a reset action. That reset action will give you some income. It'll let you get all your sticks back, and that can be your whole turn, and then you'd start over in future turns taking one of the others. If players are playing the action tiles to the top up here, they literally just take the bottom action and the top action, whatever order they want. They can also complete contracts. Now, if they use them for routes over here, they lay them down first color side up to see if they make any matching color connections, which we did on both sides. So we get to take an energy action and a gain a new tile action. And then once you perform all those actions, there's also ways to get more income. If you do 2 or 3 length routes, you then flip it over with your little dude on it, and that is now a route you own. Finally, the reset action is going to allow you to gain income based on how many of these tiles you've put out and where your income markers are. So for example, if I haven't played this one, I would only get income for these areas that I've moved forward. If I've played this one, I can get more. So right now I'd get $7, 3 workers, and 1 point, nothing over here for the victory point track. After you gain income, you then check to see how many of these stars you've earned, and you can actually place out a star onto the star track based on whatever that level is or anything below it. Then finally you get all your little pieces back, and you get to begin again. Now, one clarification is you cannot complete contracts when you take that reset action. You can only fulfill these contracts when you take an action stick or a route building action. Before I get into too much detail about what all the actions are, you also have this experiment board over here, and this happens to be experiment B. Everyone will have a different set of these tiles. As you gain these rewards over here, you'll see that there's like 1 green light, 2 green lights, and 3 green lights. You actually will get to choose to take one of these of that level. You place it in, and now you have either an ongoing benefit, a one-time big benefit, or an endgame scoring benefit at the bottom. All right, let's go ahead and start with some of the main actions over here. So this action over here is the contract action. That's how you gain these little contracts. When you gain them, you place them somewhere on your board. You gain that benefit immediately. So now I have another active worker. And then you have to complete some sort of objective. When you do, you'll get points, you'll get experiment upgrades, those kind of things at the bottom. The building action over here, this allows you to build on any of these buildings on your board. You can choose whichever ones you want to build. You just have to pay the cost on the right, and they just have to go somewhere where you're connected to in your network. This purple action over here is the industrialize action. It matches on your board. This is how you get out turbines and mines. Once again, you can choose any of these to place out. You just have to place the amount of workers. This one worker, like these two workers right here, will let you place out either a turbine or a mine. You have to come back and do the other one later. They do unlock more engine building powers as well as endgame points if you've unlocked both things next to each other. To show you the develop action symbol, that's this little gear down here. This allows you to gain more tiles, and there's that little market of tiles on the sideboard. You pay more if you want to get a higher up tile, otherwise you can get some for free. Then we have the nuclearize action. As you can see, some of them will have discounts. For example, this gives you automatically 2 energy, but then you look at your building and you see how much energy it costs. So I would be looking at one on the board and not up here, but I'll just show you this because that's where my camera is. So as you can see, this will cost 3 power. I have to find ways to get 3 power to this building, take this nuclearize action, and then I can flip it over. Like I said before, this is how you get stars, this is how you get endgame victory points as well as income. This one happens to move my coin up 1. So those are the main actions of the game. There's also ones that let you move more income. There's ones that give you immediate bonuses of money and dudes. So there's just a variety of action tiles out there. Like I said, the goal of the game is to get the most points. You do that by energizing buildings, completing and fulfilling your endgame personalized reward over there. There's also in-game points that you can collect as income. These are in-game points for connecting 2 or building 2 of a type. And then there's also those stars, that star board that I showed you before. Those are big endgame multipliers. So that is very briefly how you play Nucleum.
Have you played Barrage?
I have.
Have you played Brass?
I have not.
Okay, I have played Brass. I've not played Barrage. You've played?
Oh, Doyle rules! Yeah, I played both of them.
You play both. Okay.
Okay, so let's do
Same
a
time.
quick comparison between the two. Go.
I don't know. I mean, when you look at the map, you're like, oh, it kind of looks like the Brass map. And then you see, like, this type of building can be built here. 2 types of buildings can be built here. Like, I get the visual shorthand of it in rail tracks. The Barrage part, I don't necessarily get so much.
Barrage is meaner.
Energy, yeah. Barrage is meaner.
Yeah.
It's more Turksy.
It is not. It is not.
Oh, no.
No, that's the Luciani design.
Oh, that is the Luciani design.
Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, so you've played Barrage. Did you see any connection with Barrage?
Yeah, I
there?
see. I mean, but Barrage is one of those that does lean towards the meanness. And this does have some inadvertent. You could be like stick a turbine somewhere where someone's going to go and you're like, that happens occasionally on this one, but it's not as cutthroat.
I feel like you have to go out of your way. You can mess people up on their contracts because it is a tight board and you'd be like, ha ha ha, we've filled in all the yellow spaces. You can't get your 5th one to play your contract.
Yeah.
But you got to work hard with that.
So to start, I want to say the setup on this, right? So as you're setting it up, it's extensive. And the rule book, I mean, there was a point where I was like reading like page 6 and it's like, we'll explain that on page 19. I'm like, I've made an enormous mistake. And then and then it goes on. And so many times it says, we'll talk about something that says, we'll explain that later. We'll explain that later. And you're like, freaking A, dude. It's like, you go there so many times.
You go later. I did that once because I remember you said that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see what's later. It was like 1 paragraph.
I know. I'm going to just
Like,
put that
okay.
here. So the rule book is not, in my opinion, humble opinion, the most well-designed or formatted.
But I also feel like this game has so much going on.
It does. But it doesn't. It feels, once you start getting it, it flows. But,
Yeah.
It does. Board and Dice as a company they really like their game concepts in the front of the rule book and then and pages of game concepts because this game has a lot of concepts.
Yeah.
And then you go into what is a turn look, how to play. And sometimes it works stronger than others, and I think that it also is going to suit certain people's learning style more than others. But yes, you're going to have to go into knowing that this is an involved game with a lot of layered steps per turn. But I do agree that once you start going with the game, it flows.
I do have to say, when you talk about how involved this is, just to get onto the brass side of things, we talked about Barrage. This is much more open and accessible to build than in Brass. So in Brass, you have to directly have, like, your route has to build off of another place that has your route or a building or something. And so this one, you can just be like, I'm put a route over here. I'm put a route over there. Now I have access. So it's easier.
And when you're connected with other people's rails around the board, you can just build somewhere where you don't have any of your color buildings because
You're in network.
yeah, the general rails
Right.
go over there. That town's accessible to me. I don't want to harp on this point too much, right? Too much the comparison because not everyone's played Brass. But if you're coming into this saying, "Oh, I've heard this is, a kind of a follow-up to Brass of sorts."
Spiritual successor.
Yeah, spiritual cousin of Brass, then there are certain connection rules that will trip you up.
Right.
And you will forget, like, oh no, I'm connected. I can build over here, even though I don't have any of my color stuff there. That was a hindrance for me. This is not a critical point of the game. They are absolutely different games. But if you're going into this with that shorthand of those expectations, you have to unlearn some of your shorthand. Because this is just a different game.
It is. It's a different game. This has some really cool positive interaction with the route building that I think is awesome. So like I said, that you can just kind of jump anywhere and build a route. What I think is cool is that if we're building a 2 or 3 length route, we all could hop in on that 3 length route.
Right.
We
I like
could
that.
all get benefits from it. And at the way that you connect and hook up to other colors and get those actions along with placing the route. So it's not just, hey, I built a route this round, but you're like, I built a route and I was able to connect it to your purple and the yellow city. So now I get these 2 actions on top of I got to build that route. That's
then-
cool to me.
But then
I
the
agree.
player who you're connecting with, if you match up color, they also
They
get
also
that.
get
Yes,
something,
which is nice.
Yeah.
Which is cool, positive interaction.
Yeah, and you also, sometimes you don't want to help someone, but you're helping them, but you're also helping yourself. So you have to balance that out. You're like,
Yeah.
if I get purple, I get this, but you're also going to get that. So I do like that.
Those actions being tied to the railroads, whether you use those, I keep calling them action sticks, action tiles, whatever.
Right, yeah.
You slot them into your own board, or you throw them on the main board, and then they're gone. That's very interesting. It's like culling or like trashing cards in a deck building game or in a hand management game, where you can work yourself into a corner. I think one of the things about this game is that it can be very unforgiving.
Yes.
To early play misplays,
Yeah.
mistakes.
You can learn,
that's true.
you can lose the game quickly at the beginning. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And like you said, the multi-action tiles, trashing a card for me is so much easier than right now getting rid of that tile. I don't know why. I just got that. It's I haven't even used it, but that's the perfect tile for that situation.
And part of it too is the lineup of the tiles as they come out. So if tiles come out that let you get more tiles, it's so much easier to give up a tile. But if you're like, I only have 1 tile that will let me get tiles, if I give another tile up, I may not get another one anytime soon.
Or that specific tile, you're like, boy, that'd be perfect between these 2 places here. But then I would have no, except for your 1 guaranteed like single action that you can do anything. Like I have no other ways to acquire new tile. They never let you lock yourself out.
Yes.
Because you always have that 1 wild action tile. Great design
Right.
decision. But they also, this is the kind of game that gives you enough rope that you can hang yourself type of, the
Yeah.
old aphorism, right? It
Yeah.
really is that way. You want to throw all your action tiles on the board? Do it. I'm not going to stop you.
But you know what? Even if
That's
you
true.
do, which means you don't have stars to trade in when you do a reset action, if you have to do like 2 resets in a row, you lose some points, but then at the end, you get more resources from it. You're like, you get a consolation prize for being really bad at the game. And I appreciate that.
There are 2 things that kind of got me that I wasn't crazy about. I want to see your thoughts on these. Number 1, the contracts. The contracts can be very swingy. It can kind of
Yes.
like, they can come out and you're like, I happen to be able to do that now, and you get that. So that, a lot of games have that, several of them, but this one just feels like, you just kind of lucked into that, didn't you? And then on top of that, the milestones over here, that really guides how you play the game.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're, whatever you want to do, you don't, because that's the track you need to focus on.
I do know my first game, I only completed a couple contracts, and I felt
Really?
like I was never doing anything with contracts, which meant I wasn't really building up my engine of my experiments. I wasn't getting those abilities. And I was still playing and I was having fun and I was, pulling levers, but there was just so much I couldn't do because my whole contract board was filled up because I needed those resources and then I couldn't complete them.
Yeah.
And so it's part of that like learning struggle, along with there's not a lot of ways to clear out that contract market if it gets gummed up. But
Right.
then also if you clear it out and take something you don't really want, somebody else might get something they can already complete.
Yeah.
That is my biggest weakness with this game. For me, my biggest downside is those contracts. Whether you're playing with 2, 3, or 4 players, it's always only 2 silver and 2 of those gold contracts out. And I understand that the gold contracts are for later game, typically, but sometimes a few of those come out. And I was reading about the situation just to make sure that I wasn't wrong about this. But it's possible that it's always possible that you could be locked out of a contract.
Right.
You know, you can't build 5 things in orange because everyone else has done that. It's also possible, depending on the setup, that those neutral blocking pieces upon setup make a contract impossible to do. And I just think, darn, right? I wish that there was at my table, if there's not literally 5 spaces in orange, that contract is getting wiped and being replaced with another one.
Sure.
Because I don't want that very limited market of 2 gold contracts having one that's bogged in there, like one that would be literally impossible. And I know that that's a rare case,
Right.
but more likely the case is every one of us is looking at those 2 going, I'm not taking one because I'm going to reveal one that Joey or Wendy can do immediately if I take this piece of garbage that is going to hold off for too long.
And it just gums up your
yeah.
board because you can't get rid of them except by fulfilling them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, I don't think it looks great. I think the best looking part about this is the cover. I don't
agree.
think it looks good on the table. And that cover looks like this is going to be good. And it's just like, oh, I wish I would have saw more of that artwork there.
It is busy, and then the icons are very childish looking.
Yeah.
They're very, they're not great symbols. I mean, they work. They work. Like
Right,
for a
they're
working
functional.
function, they're very functional.
I think the iconography works very well for me, actually. Within one play, you could hand me any players, the experiments A, B, C, or D, any of those tech tiles, and I could read through them and understand what they all do, even if I've not seen them in a game. I think the iconography is consistent. I think that it is readable from across the table, upside down. The downside of that is that this game has an immense table space
Oh my goodness.
requirement.
Yes.
It's a huge hog.
Massive. On our, we have one of those game toppers at home, which fits most any big Euro game that we like playing.
Right.
Yeah.
But this one, with Wendy and I trying to have the board at all close to us, we had to go wide, and then the contracts that I grab had to lean against the side of the table because I couldn't have my player board fit, and my experiments are up top instead of beside it. More detail than need to say that, like, even at home, we're just like leaning things on the walls to make them fit.
It's insane.
Yeah.
This is huge. Like I said, with that comes a highly usable player board with really good information spelled out.
I
on
agree.
it.
Yeah.
Comes good sized iconography to be able to read everything.
The action tiles, once you get them, you get them. You don't have to relearn everything.
Yes. One downside that I have heard, and this is not something I've experienced or any of us at the table, but it is not colorblind friendly at all.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Which I find that very unfortunate. I have to remember that when I recommend, hey, have you tried Nucleum yet? Ooh, I'm really sorry
Because
about
the colors matter so much with the city connections.
that. Yes.
That is
colors-
interesting.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that
a good
is
point.
that is a thing I've heard from multiple people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, let's talk about more stuff that we liked, because I feel like we talked about a lot of negative, and I really liked this game. So,
Spoilers.
Energizing. Energizing a building is not something I fully explained in the overview because it's complicated.
Right.
It's a process. So you have to have a power plant, and the power plant, if you're going to use Nucleum, has to be nuclearized, and then it has to be connected to your building as well as the source of the fuel. And so once you have all of that, then you can just play in action and you spend your stuff and you spend your money and you can mix coal and Nucleum to meet whatever your energy needs are.
Right.
You know that meme of the lady with like the math floating in
yeah,
front of
yeah.
her? That's what I'm seeing with Joey right now. He's like,
It's like, do I have it all?
Yeah.
And coal gets pricey as it goes along. Like the
It
coal gets more
does.
expensive as people spend it. It flips over and then eventually it comes off. And so something that costs, $4 to make energy for might cost a lot more than that later on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point of interaction in that at the start of a game, you might kind of be on different sides of the map and it's public coal on those sides, but really it's like, this is my coal because Wendy's not up in here at all. And then all of a sudden Wendy builds there and is like energized and ranks up cranks up the price of the coal. And I'm like, my coal!
Yeah. So there's definitely, because you can just kind of hop around anywhere as long as you can build those connections, it's you can be very much in each other's space, or you can play a little bit more separate. It does eventually fill in, though. You're never going to completely be separate.
No.
Okay.
That's the thing. You'll try to at first, but
Yeah.
Get off my side. Get off my side. It happens a lot.
I also enjoy the resources, the way that you really have to balance your different incomes. And I love those income tracks.
Agreed.
As you take that reset action, you get to take those incomes, but then it's dependent on how many actions you took. So even if I have a 15-point income, I get 15 points every time I take income, except I have to have enough of those little action sticks out there to make it worth it. So I've had to take enough actions to be able to get the 15 points. I think is very clever.
And the technologies are neat. I wonder how those are going to hold up and popping them out and popping them back in. Every time I think I'm going to rip them out.
I do not understand why they have the little separation
Yeah, I wish
things.
you could just slide them back and
They
forth.
should have just been tiles with just no pieces in between.
Right, because I'm always...
Because you could just flip them over. You'd be like, one side is not...
Oh, I've been so much smarter.
Yeah, one
That could've
side
been
is
grayed
just
out.
not used, the other side is used.
Okay, that's...
On and off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
something
good
that
point.
I didn't understand why that was a choice. I do think, especially in our convention library copy, it's going to get destroyed.
Yeah.
Though
worried
someone
about that.
did play it 13 times at the retreat and it survived. So,
One person played this 13 times?
yeah. Fez guy.
Wow.
I don't remember his name. So I don't
That's-
remember your name if you watch this review.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
it-
they're-
that
It was
is-
They are
very impressive.
radioactive
He taught me.
now.
He was a great teacher.
Wow.
Yeah, this game, so I played it at 2, I played it at 4.
How was it at 4?
It was good. It was my first game, though, so
Okay.
it was a lot, and there was definitely, 3 of us didn't know what we were doing, and one person did.
Did you use
So
a basketball
they
court
destroyed
for
us.
player boards and stuff?
Yeah.
Is that where you played it at? Okay, makes
Yeah.
sense.
We actually laid on the floor,
Did you?
so we kept enough space.
Yeah.
No, it's impressive. Like I said, the thing that the board flips, right, depending on scaling, which I think is good, and then that all is good. The way that the contracts are or there are always 2 of them, regardless of player count. I think what happens in a 4-player game is that it's more likely someone will take the contract to clear it out. It's kind of still a bit of a sticking point, though, that if nobody does, then everyone's playing chicken with it. Otherwise, I think that the game goes longer with more people,
Yeah.
but it has some scaling, which I think helps. Even going down to 2, I think this is a good 2-player game.
So what score are you going to give it, Joey?
I don't know. I'm in the middle. Trying to think when I would pull it out, but there's nothing functionally wrong with the game. I think the setup is a bit long. I don't think it looks great on the table, but I think when you get there, it's fun once the engine starts moving. So I'm coming in at a 7 because I do recommend it, knowing that, hey, it is going to take up a lot of table space, and it's going to be a lot to wrap your brain around. But once you get in there, you're like, okay, I got it. Which is different for some Euros, So I'd still probably gravitate to Barcelona, Revive, and different things like that over this. But it does make sense once you start flowing. So I come in at a 7 as recommend. If you like this style of thing, you're going to love it.
Nice.
For me, this one is an 8. I am very close to going up to the 8.5 for the Seal of Excellence, but for a few of those little things, right? Namely the contracts, a little bit of how bogged down turns will be, where you're sitting there going, okay, well, I want to do this action next. No, but because of these very important implications for each thing that you do, sometimes you have to plan 5 turns ahead. You take an action that says you can take a person or 2 coins, and you might sit and stare at that for 30 seconds trying to math out an extra meeple or 2 coins. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm mathing, so step back, right?
My house rule fix for that is that on that tile, place whatever you decided to get, and if later you want to exchange it, just exchange it. Either use it or exchange it, because holy cow, it doesn't matter.
But it does matter.
But it does matter.
It does
Yeah.
matter in terms of what can you actually accomplish.
Yeah.
So it is layered. It's a heavy strategy game, right? And by
Right.
that I mean it's heavy on the implications of which actions that you do. The effects that you cause will spill over in 5 turns. You'll look back at yourself and be like, I shouldn't have made that a railroad out there. I'm the biggest moron in the world. But I do like struggling through that and working through it. This is a game that is a lot of fun, but for some of those little things that hold back from me saying that this is excellent. But I still see myself playing this and enjoying it a lot. And as time goes by, I might be able to work past some of those some of the implications of the, and just be able to kind of feel like I'll just enjoy it more. So it's an 8 for now. I am also very much recommending this if you like the style of Eurogame with some interaction, with some teeth. Yeah, it's so cool to power up buildings and just see yourself moving and progressing, moving up those income tracks. And you're like, I'm getting somewhere.
And that's what, and can I add one thing to what I said before, is like, to piggyback off what you said, the contracts I think bothered me a bit more, the luck of those coming out in this game more than one like Merchants of Magic, that has the same thing where you luck into stuff. But that's a 30-minute game. This is a 2 to 3 hour game. So when you do that, you're like, come on, man. You're building this and you just lucked into those points. So it's
not just points, it's those experiment upgrades.
Yeah. It's like you luck, which really can cascade.
Yeah, it can. So. Okay, well, I'm giving this a 9. I loved it. I think it was absolutely wonderful. I had a ton of fun. I love the multi-use tiles. I tend to like games with multi-use cards, and so having those multi-use tiles and just that decision of, do I keep it and have an action, or to take a slightly larger turn, put it out on the board, and potentially still get all those action things, but then I can't use it later.
I know.
I love it. I love that. I love the interaction in this. This is very much a timing interaction game. So it's me looking at the people around me and going, okay, can I wait another action or 2 before I need to use up that coal in the corner, or are you going to use it before me?
Right.
Do I need to wait?
And I will.
Or do I need to build this building first because you're going to take this building spot that I want, or you're going to build the turbine that I want?
I will.
And so it's definitely, Joey's going to do everything. He's going to take 7 turns between my 1 turn and my 2nd turn.
Apparently he's really good at this game.
He is.
Great.
He just cheats the whole time. That's why he enjoys it.
Magic.
No. But that's the type of interaction that I enjoy because I can see that possibility.
Yeah,
I can see where you're at. If you're not in my area, I know I have at least 2 turns before you can get in my area.
That's a good point.
And so I appreciate being able to look ahead. Towards the end game, it definitely gets tighter because everybody's connected to almost everything. And so you're like, oh, okay, now it's a little bit more of a struggle with timing. But yeah, I enjoy it. I think this is great. It's a lot of fun. And Brass being my favorite game of all time, I don't think this is quite there because of the contracts.
Right.
Because of the production is not as pretty.
No.
It's not Brass for me, but it's still a very, very good game, and I highly, highly recommend it.
One small thing I'll say is there's not as many opportunities for positive player interaction. So if you're going into this saying, like, this is like Brass, there's not as much, I'm not using up your uranium mines that you're building
that
benefits me, but also benefits you. There's less of that in this game.
You can with turbines, but it's like $1. You're like, I pay you $1 to use your turbine.
Yeah.
It's a little more minimal. The other thing I will say, though, is you're like, oh, cool, like no one's over here, I got 2 actions. No, you don't. You did this to me the last game that we played, where you just dropped a stick over there, one of the railroads, that had a build action in it, and you're like, you wanted that spot? Boom! I wasn't even on that side of the map, and now I'm up in your grill. So
that is true.
But that's a positive, I'm sure, in a lot of ways, where the game doesn't have that crawling feel. So it is interactive, and you're going to get in each other's faces, and sometimes by surprise. And as you're more familiar with the game, you'll see the possibility of those moments coming up, and you'll plan accordingly.
I agree.
That's true. Well, there you go. Thanks for joining us today. This was Nucleum, and I'm Wendy Yi.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Chris Yi.
Go and energize something.
With Nucleum. Nothing.
I'm cutting that out. That was bad.
That was really bad. I was like, Nucleum.
I like those chairs better than the couch.
Really?
Yeah. My knees just barely go to the edge of this.
Oh, yeah.
We're burning film here.